All right, 8 o'clock. Welcome everybody to the next ASCFG Zoom meeting, Ask an Expert. That's taken a big title for us. We don't consider ourselves experts. We consider ourselves students. Most of the time, we're always learning. This is Frank Arnosky with Pamela Arnosky, Texas Specialty Cut Flowers. I'm going to welcome you. First thing we want to say is be sure to turn off your microphone and turn off your camera. So
they can leave their camera on if they want.
Well, you can leave your camera on if you want. If you
I
want
kind of
to
like seeing them.
Pamela wants to see who you are.
Hi, Polly.
All right, and let's see, a couple other notes here. If you have questions, just type them into the chat. Somehow our little chat thing has disappeared, but we'll get that back up later, and we'll answer the questions at the end of the session. We'll get a bunch of slides to run through. It's going to take us talking really, really fast, and those of us who've been in seminars with ASCFG and seen us before know that we can talk really fast. So
there's also a lag because we have very slow internet between when Frank puts the next picture up. So
I'll try to
bear with that.
I'll try to be moving the pictures ahead of myself as we go on this, but they may start to overlap a little bit. So, okay, about us, what we're going to be doing here, talking about Beyond Dahlias. And Judy asked us, well, what does that really mean? Why do you say Beyond Dahlias? And we were laughingly talking about dahlias being the gateway drugs for flower growers. Everybody does dahlias. Everybody gets into dahlias. They're fabulous. They're beautiful. They're stunning. Everything's right about them, except for us. They're not the biggest moneymaker. They're way down on the list of things that make profit, but they're really beautiful. We can make a lot more money on a seed-grown annual than we do on dahlias. So what do we do to ratchet up beyond the things that first caught our eye? The seed-grown annuals and things like that. And let me see, can't get that going here. This will be coming up, a picture of our dahlias. And we do about 3/4 of an acre of dahlias. So there's no shortage of dahlias around our farm. But like I said, it's not the most important thing we do. Oops, I do not know why I did that.
Go back.
There we go. Trying to figure out Zoom as we go. We've got some larkspur coming up. We'll talk about the larkspur. Nope. Thing doesn't want to work on me. We'll talk about larkspur is a seed-grown annual, really cheap, really cheap. You can put it out with a hand seeder. You can just literally get buckets and buckets and buckets of it. We do a lot of sunflowers. And we do an awful lot of coxcomb and pompous plume celosias, again, seed-grown annuals that you can make a lot of money on. What you're hearing here is that we want to make a lot of money. And Pamela and I took our business up to where we started doing bouquets on our porch. There was a rabbit that slept under our porch and the kids were under there too. And we had lemon lime soda from Walmart would be our preservative. We didn't know what we were doing. And we moved up from there, step by step. There was nobody here that knew exactly what they're doing. We had to learn as we went. I have to say, we're losing track of the video here. I think I'm up to the marigolds. Marigolds are a big item for us too. And Day of the Dead has become an enormous flower sales for us. We did 20,000 bunches of marigolds in 2 weeks in the end of October last year. So marigolds are huge.
32,000.
32,000. I was wrong. 20,000 the year before that. Coxcomb celosia. We do an awful lot of coxcomb celosia. In the greenhouse, we do a lot of bulbs. A lot of anemones. You're seeing anemones here. And we also grow some dahlias in the greenhouse, although again, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us because they don't make a great deal of money. But the slide that's going to come up here is going to be Naomi from the Karma series, and it produces thousands of stems. So it's the one we do in the greenhouse. We do a lot of field-grown dahlias, delphinium also. Fewer every year. They have post-harvest handling problems, but they're so stunning that we just absolutely love them. And you can really, really make a lot of money on delphiniums too. Going through the list here, Lysianthus, the beep you're hearing is my computer telling me it doesn't want to go forward. So Lysianthus, another big one, Texas native. It actually grows wild in our fields. It's much smaller, little single lavender flower, really nice. So what we want to talk about is ramping up. How do we get from going from our porch, making bouquets on our porch, using lemon-lime soda, to what the real flower growers use? And when I say real flower growers, I don't mean that to say nobody's not a real flower grower, but there's levels of scale in our industry, of which Pamela and I fall way down on the lower part. There are California farms that dwarf what we do by miles, and there are probably some California farms that single farms that grow nearly as much stuff as all the ASCFG members, us included, combined. But then to put that in perspective, there's probably some growers in South America that a single grower may grow as much as all of the California producers together. The scale of this industry is huge. So we wanted to get up into the industry. We wanted to sell to grocery stores. We wanted to sell to floral wholesalers, to the larger segments of the industry. First thing we had to learn was how to produce the plant material. That's number one. Doing the seeds, doing a lot of seeds, and having a greenhouse is the essential thing. A lot of people come to us and they say, well, I've started my seeds in a seed chamber. I start them in a closet. I start them in a special room I've built to grow seeds. One person came up and asked us one time, well, how far away do we keep our grow lights from our seedling bench? And I said, 93 million miles, because that's the distance from the sun to the earth. We don't use any grow lights. We don't use any kind of seed bench indoors, because you just never are going to get the kind of quality plug that you need, the kind of seedling that goes out in the field if you're doing it under lights. They're going to stretch, they're going to be weak, you're going to have transplant issues. So build a greenhouse, even if it's a small greenhouse. I know some people up north say, well, I can't really afford to heat the greenhouse in the wintertime just to do seedlings. Well, actually, just to do seedlings is the most important thing you've got to do. So build a greenhouse, build it size appropriate, make a small greenhouse for starting your seedlings. You don't have to do 6 at one time like we're doing here. Oops. Trying to get that to go to the next one. Sorry about that, guys. Oh no, here. It won't go forward. Let me go back one. We'll get back at this. Don't worry. Trying to get this thing worked out. Sorry, guys.
It's pretty strange talking without actually not being able to see anybody's face and knowing there's a lag in what some of the photos are. But the point that Frank's making is we started out just the Pam and Frank show. And when we realized we needed more money if we were going to be able to pay for our land, we were going to have to scale up. And that was the only way we knew that was the only way we had to make enough money to not just take a vow of poverty.
Keep talking while I figure this out, Pamela.
I'm trying. It'd be nice if we got some feedback, but I can't hear,
Yeah, we can't hear you, so we don't know how much complaining is going on.
Double click on that.
No complaining, it's great.
Okay, thank you. We just may have to run through these really fast again. I hate that. It's not going really fast.
Why won't it go? Why won't it go forward?
It doesn't go forward very fast. Here we go.
Okay, good. So when we moved out here in 1990, by 93, we were growing cut flowers. And the first thing, and Frank and I were in the bedding plant business before we transitioned over to specialty cut flowers. And this cedar is the first thing we bought even before we ever had a tractor or anything else.
So
So we're finally to the picture Frank needs.
finally to the seeding machine. The it's called a berry seeder, comes from North Carolina. You can look at a berry seeder company. This little unit with all the plates that we needed, they're precision board aluminum plates. They cost about $1,000 altogether. It is hands down the best $1,000 we've ever spent in 30 years of farming to do this. We do everything through this seeder. And one thing I would have to say is that we never do anything in open trays. We absolutely never use soil blocks. You just have to get past the soil block thing, because you limit yourself how many soil blocks you can possibly make for yourself. We grow in the neighborhood of 30,000 plugs a week now during the summer. From March until November, we're seeding 30,000 plugs a week. And we couldn't possibly make 30,000 soil blocks, let alone handle them in the field, take them out to the field and try to plant them. You couldn't have enough bottom trays. You couldn't have enough material. You just don't have enough time. So that's one of those ceilings that's going to prevent you from being a bigger grower. Hopefully it's come along to the seeder again. And we try to use pelleted seed wherever we can get it. Pelleted seed is nice to work with. It does have a problem that the pellets tend to absorb water over time, so it doesn't last as long. So if you buy a lot of seed and try to hang on to a lot, pelleted seed it's kind of hard to keep it alive for a long period of time. But the pelleted seed is the way to go when you can. And you'll see coming along here our seeding plate. The plate shows the seed stuck to all the little holes. The holes are held by a vacuum. The vacuum is left on while you turn the seeder over and you drop it into a plug tray. We use a 128 cell plug tray, and that's really our standard size. We use a 200 sometimes. We never ever bump up plants, except in the very rare exception of something small seeded like yarrow.
Or something that doesn't germinate well. Frank may start it in a 392 if it doesn't have good germination, and then I'll bump it up.
But really, what we want to talk about today is you try to avoid any extra steps, any extra movement.
Right.
Oh, we're hearing someone coming through here.
Audio.
So anyway, if we can just seed directly into a 128, we avoid having to move those plants around more than once. These 128 cell trays are filled at a bench, and then they are annuals and other things. As the anthus goes out and it goes out into the field, one of the things we do out in the field is try and mechanize to ramp it up. We are planting everything with a 4-row planter, the planting machine. And again, I don't know where these things are coming up because we have a really slow internet connection, just to let you know. As I tell Judy today, we did an internet test. Our internet speed runs halfway between Yemen and Bangladesh for our average internet speed. So that's just rural Texas for you. So hopefully by now you can see the screen that's showing the planter. Yeah, what did I do that for? Here we go again. That planting machine has saved us just so much time, so much money. We ride people right on the back, you ride backwards. It puts in rows 1 and 3, turn around and put in rows 2 and 4. You can get them really nice and tight, like that Lysianthus picture we showed a minute ago. And if you're going to be doing it, you're going to need something like that to ramp up your transplant time. I've seen people put out netting, 10x netting, and then plant through the squares. I've seen people running lines. I know some people use a paper pot transplanter, but I've never really seen that you can't ramp up past a certain level with those items, because you've got a ceiling. You just simply are not going to be able to plant enough things by hand through netting. So how are you going to do that? Where are you going to get the people? You're going to have some help. We tried everything. We've done interns, we've done high school kids, we've done local people. Our own family was raised up cutting flowers. That when they all went off and did other wonderful things that had nothing to do with farming, they all told us, well, Dad, I've already been in the farming business for 20 years. I'm ready to go do something else. So they went off to college and got degrees in landscape architecture and aviation and things like that. So we hire a crew through the H2A program because that really is turned out to be the only way we can get a reliable crew of people who are going to show up every day and come and do it. It may not work for everybody, and some people have crews that work really well, come back every year for them, but for us, it has been the only way we can do it. And our crew comes back every year. They're in the process right now. They're actually at the consulate in Monterey right now. It's not an easy process. We do our own. We've done it from the beginning, so we know the legal work. But I would recommend hiring a firm. There's some credible firms called MAS Labor, M-A-S Labor, somewhere in Virginia. There's another one called Head Honchos here in Texas, and they'll run the whole process through for you, of course, for legal fees. It's not cheap, it's not easy, but it's the best way we've had to find labor. This is a slide of
And
our.
you get the same guys back, same people back every year,
You can choose.
so that you were training, you can train your crew, and then it just streamlines it.
You can choose who you get back, and you can get the same crew every year.
If you want them.
Well, one for a period of time, we had a little trouble getting all the paperwork through, and we hired some college kids in the summer. This is our son on the left, Janos, and our good friend Michael Cook. They were both students at Texas A&M, and they kind of helped save the summer for us when we couldn't get any work. You notice there that they're using Felco pruners. That's also another one of the points that I like to make, is that everybody has a different idea about what they like to cut with, but as far as I'm concerned, there's only one, and that's a Felco. And when you go down to Ecuador, you go down to Colombia, you look around, everybody in the flower business is using Felcos. I don't see anybody snipping anything with grape shears or floral snips. Those Felcos can cut sunflowers, they can cut Lysianthus, they can cut anything. So the Felcos are what we rely on here. Everybody on the farm gets Felcos. When we're cutting flowers, trying to cut and get things processed properly is the next step for really ratcheting up your profitability. I've talked to people who've been out in the field, and they said they bunch in the field, they bring the buckets out, they do the bunches, they do the sleeving in the field. You find very quickly that becomes so cumbersome, and then you're ending up breaking flowers and having to redo the bunches. And what we do is we harvest our stuff in the field in bundles, the enormous handfuls, and we have one guy who's designated to carry flowers.
Not bundles, arm loads.
Arm loads, not bundles, arm loads. And the guy who carries flowers has got the hardest job on the farm because he is hustling. We got 5 guys out there cutting, and 1 guy hauling flowers, and he's moving. And he's got to fill the buckets at the same time. He's got to get them all in the bucket right. He's got to get them all down in the water right. And so everybody who picks is geared to pick an arm load size, lay it down on the ground, let somebody come along and get it back. And so we try to streamline everything we do there. When we're cutting plants, if it's at all possible, like you see here in these marigolds coming up, we cut the whole plant.
And this is at the end of the season. This is an October cutting.
So if you can, we do the same with Gomphrena. We started out picking little stems of Gomphrena, and it was just driving us crazy. What are we going to do? And we finally said, well, why don't we just cut the whole plant? Cut the plant, haul it off, take it to the shed, and then throw the bucket out on the table, and then you can sort it out. You do all your culling, all of your stripping of leaves, the bunching, the cutting out seconds. That actually all should be done in shade, out of the sun. Get your workers out of the field, and do it with the radio on and in the shade. We do bunch sunflowers in the field. That's the only thing that we bunch in the field. And we have those, that's our son Janos carrying sunflowers out of the field. And you can see he's got a nail apron that we stuff him into. He's got a little packet of rubber bands on his finger. And we bunch those in the field. They go into buckets. They're barcoded, and they're in the buckets ready to go to the store. Sometimes we take them back if we're going to store them, and we'll transfer them to another type of floral preservative. I have a little trouble with my computer here.
It's a spinning ball of
You
death.
got the spinning beach ball on the Mac. But the preservative is the next thing we're going to talk about when I get the slide up. We use all the preservatives that we can possibly get. We use the OVB for cutting into
From Crisol.
from Crisol. You could also use a Fluorolife compound, you know, what's it called?
Hydrofluor.
Hydrofluor. And I'm sorry, I'm having the computer frozen up here. Yike.
Well, we started using Crisol OVB
We-
because we used to use hydrofluor, but when we left, but the advantage we have with Crisol is that we can leave the flowers in the solution without any kind of scarring or browning of petals or leaves.
Wh-
And you can also, if you go to the farmer's market, put OVB in your buckets that you display in, and you can be 100 degrees out there and your plants aren't going to wilt. So that's one reason we became OVB fans.
So I'm sorry, my screen is frozen up, and we
Just stop clicking at it and leave it alone.
okay. Well, we're
So
going to keep
what's next? Just
we're going to keep talking about preservatives because that's really important. What we, with the OVB, there's real different from the OVB. There's an RVB also, and if you're buying a Crisol RVB, that's for roses, and that tends to burn flowers. So make sure that you make that distinction between the RVB and the OVB. We also use a Crisol solution called Universal
AVB.
2.
Oh.
Universal 2. And that is a holding solution. And the holding solution is really important if you're going to be shipping flowers in water, because you don't want to ship flowers in a full preservative because that's got too much sugar in it. And the sugar causes the flowers to open really fast. So a holding solution has a biocide and a citric acid. Citric acid so that you're acidifying it. But it doesn't have the sugar. The three parts of a flower food are the sugar, the biocide, and the citric acid. If you're not using that, you're opening yourself up to either wilting or bacterial problems. I'm getting a little losing my train of thought here because I'm trying to get this computer to do something, but it appears to be frozen. So we are probably going to go ahead and
Just keep talking.
keep talking. I've got the slide on the computer. Hang on just a second. You keep talking while I work on this.
What's the next slide?
The next slide is more on preservatives.
Well, we use a dosatron, and back in the day, we used to, when we first started using powdered flower food, we would do it in each bucket, and then Gay Smith was an ASCFG principal person, and she was the quality control person for Procon and Chrysal, and Gay introduced us to just use the dosatron, put it into every bucket. It's complete. It's just like it's perfectly measured, the dosatron of the water. The other thing we use are CVB tablets, which are the Gerber tablets. And we have found over time that if we put a CVB tablet into every bucket that leaves the farm that also has Crisol Professional 2's holding solution, it actually increased the vase life phenomenally. Another thing is these sunflower buckets, when we take them back to the farm, back to the packing shed, and we transfer from OVB into professional flower food, we put 4 tablets. Now, every now and then, the flower food manufacturers will change the formulation on you. And a couple of years ago, when the Colombians bought Crisol, they started putting some kind of a hydrator into their Crisol Professional 2. And I haven't yet figured the problems out there. I know that I can no longer use that particular Crisol Professional 2 on zinnias because it gives zinnias the same bent neck that using a hydrator on zinnias always used to. But that's a whole nother issue. So what are you going to do? Get
I'm
out of
trying
this
to-
and come back in?
Trying to get the other computer going. So
Okay, Frank, what Frank's trying to do is if he can bring the other computer up and zoom it, then we'll jump from this into a different program and just change. Do you know what the next slide is?
just a second.
What about chats? Can we even get to chats with this thing? More.
Yeah, it's chat.
Yep, nobody's chatting.
Okay, if you want to ask some questions right now while I'm working this out,
That would be an awesome thing.
once you go through some questions, then Pamela can go ahead and click on that. There's your chat.
Okay, here we are.
Move it out of the way.
Let's see. Thank you for this tech issues. Okay, there's first question I see is about H2A. H2A, H2A does require housing. It also has extensive lists of things that you have to do in order to comply, and you have to follow every rule, and it's very frustrating. And if you're not good at, if you have the money to do it, I would actually recommend hiring somebody like Moss Labor to do it. I think Steve and Gretel Adams use somebody like Moss Labor to help them work it through every year, because part of providing housing is you can rent housing that's inspected, that you could use that. The guys make a federally mandated wage rate. This year, it's $13.88 an hour. You pay their travel to and from the job site, which means we're paying their way up from Mexico, and we'll pay them to go home at the end of the year. You also pay, we also pay all visa fees, anything that they have to pay at the consulate. They bring us the receipts for, and they get paid back for all of that. Other than that, you have to let them have a way to go to town every week to buy groceries. Our guys all come, we tell them to get your driver's licenses, because we can use our farm our insurance can cover them. And so they have dedicated vehicles that they can that they can go to town. I mean, it's amazing.
Right.
There's a question here. Where'd you go?
I had to move that computer.
Okay.
Well, I tell you what, folks, our computer is just locked up.
What's HBB? What's that mean?
So we're probably just going to have to take this from the questions, and it's supposed to be Ask an Expert. So you can tell we're not an expert on Zoom. We're going to just go down these questions, and let's just ask questions, because we've been in business 30 years. We probably can answer some things, and let's just see what we can answer. Okay, go ahead.
What am I going ahead and doing?
Take the next question.
So there's one question here that says, what is HBB and how do I be able to buy it? That was from Cynthia. I don't understand what that is. And if you want to unmute and answer it. I don't know. This is not working out very well, Frank.
All right. How much growing space do we dedicate for each of our top 5 crops, and what have you done? Have you done enterprise budgets for them? Well, you're getting me on the budget question. No, we don't have an enterprise budget on those crops. Dedicated space for the top 5 crops. First of all, our top 5 crops are going to be sunflowers, which is way up there as a huge top crop. Zinnias, marigolds. Marigolds is probably number 2 as our individual crop right now. And zinnias are big. What else would you say? Top 5 crops.
Well, we do whatever it is seasonal so that we can make bouquets, because unfortunately bouquets are about 50% of what we do. The other thing I'd like to say is that whereas used to 90% of our business was wholesale, now 50% of our business is wholesale, and the other 50% is direct farm sales. And and as our area out here has changed and grown, we have been able to have people actually come to the farm and pay the full value for whatever it is that we're selling. And the same efficiencies. I still have to make, 300 or 400, 500 bouquets per day all summer long. And so even though if you're very small, our point with doing this whole thing was if you're really at a small to be bigger, is that if you always analyze what you're doing and try to cut out steps. One of the things I'm going to talk about is that we use sleeves. We use sleeves because they protect the flowers in shipping. And the other, when we take them to the grocery store and also at the barn at our farm market. But the other thing is that we print our logo on the sleeves. And by printing our logo on the sleeves, we're able to tell the story, even when you take it to the store and nobody has gotten around to putting it on the flower, a label on the buckets. The other thing is the sleeves give us a place to put our barcode. And you have to have codes. One thing I would like to talk about is the level of the relationship that we have going with our buyers at the wholesale level. We've sold in the past to Whole Foods, Central Market, which is an HEB regional grocery store, and HEB, which is a huge regional grocery store chain. HEB is really important in the world of ours because they try to very high, and an equivalent look would be East Coast. Farm sells to Wegmans. What they do with Wegmans, do HEB. Our buckets travel in water, red floor. As soon as they're, let's see, somebody said, how can you learn more about holding solutions? If you were to go on the frequently asked questions of the Floralife and the Crystal websites, I believe you can get answers about that. What's the kind of solution you're going to hold the flowers versus the one that you want the consumer to take home with. There was a question about what size tray do you do our Lysianthus in and plan out. Frank's doing them in 28s also. I have to tell you honestly, even though many of you guys do great Lysianthus, because we're in Texas, sometimes it is a bear. It's like it's every disease. And so I'm not a real Lysianthus for how long it lasts and stuff like that. But it is, man, it's a hard crop, period. It takes months from seeding to when it's actually big enough to put out. Let's see. Somebody from seed. We do crops from a lot of, we do seed. When we do the ranunculus anemones, thing we do is, and I'm gonna let Frank talk about what he does with ranunculus anemones because he's in charge of that. So
okay, ranunculus anemones. I've seen a lot of people these days that are finding all sorts of different of different kinds of techniques to start their bulbs, anywhere from going on to putting in plugs to laying them out in trays and then separating them out and transplanting pre-rooted. None of that's necessary. If you simply just put your bag in or soak them for the prerequisite amount of time, about 4 hours for ranunculus, about an hour for anemones, about a day for anemones. Then put those bags in some loose plastic bags. You don't want to soak them. You don't want them to get too wet. Put them in the cooler for 10 days for ranunculus, about a month for anemones. Plant them directly in the ground. There's really no reason to have to pre-sprout those things in soil or in plug trays or in trays. They really can just go right from the cooler right into the ground. Take it.
Which one? Where is this? Let's see. Somebody asked to go through our hydrating solutions again. Would you do that?
I'm not sure you're even hearing me at this point because the internet connection appears just gone down the tubes. Okay, it says California, I'm growing on left, which are hydrating solutions. Yeah, hydrating solutions, Crisol OVB is the hydrating solution, our choice. Crisol RVB is made for roses. It will burn flowers other than roses. And Floralife, it has got a hydrofluor, and if you left them in there too long, it tends to burn the petals. What a hydration solution is basic soap, and the soap doesn't really much, except it lowers the capillary action in the tubes of the flower stem, and it allows them to go up faster, just like soap. They use soap to break the surface tension of other things. It's just breaking the surface tension. The other hydrating solutions we don't use because we have to change them out. We use OVB, we can put them right in the cooler and leave them in the OVB for as long as. Okay, California Zone B, growing less than a quarter acre. Limited space, what would we grow and what would we skip growing and buy wholesale? Seed grown annual, the stuff that's going to grow the fastest for you: sunflowers, zinnias, marigolds, gomphrenias. If you're in Southern California, or Zone B, not B, that's pretty warm. You can do just about anything. When you're doing amount of ground, you're buying in, cutting, buying in bulbs, you're spending an awful lot of money for a small amount of return on that small amount of ground. I would say stick with summer grown seed annuals, the hot season annuals.
Well, the other thing, and I don't think Frank is about this, but if you're in California and there's something that is easily available in bulk and long lasting, why not? I could imagine that you would buy in, for example, their phenomenal stock and buy in phenomenal, maybe Lysianthus, and put it into your bouquets if that's what you're trying to do. But we only sell what we're actually cutting. Somebody asked about sleeves. We use a BOPP, bio-oriented polypropylene sleeve. We get it from whoever we can. It's a difficult thing right now because of the supply chain thing. Things are very expensive. Let's see. Gretel asked, is the farm stand still self-serve? Yes, the farm stand is still self-serve. What we've done to supplement the farm stand is we now grow, we use that wonderful little seeding machine of ours, and we seed tons and tons of bedding plants. And so we sell big 15-inch hanging baskets of geranium. We buy in geranium cuttings and begonias, and we sell thousands of baskets a year. And people are now coming for transplants that we are growing from seed, and also stuff that we'll buy in the plants. And so it has supplemented our thing where people drive up to the farm stand, they come in and get their cut flowers for the week, they go over to the cooler and they may pick up cheese from the local goat dairy and eggs, and then they also buy plants. And what we've been trying to promote since COVID is so that people can really get into the garden and grow for their own. And so we sell also 4-inch pots of transplants of everything that we're growing in the cut flower farm as well. Let's see. I discourage pickup from designers at the barn because they can literally clean you out. But DIY, since COVID, we've gone all for DIY brides. They let me know when they're coming, and we've discussed what they would interested in coming. They put a check or cash into the cash box, and they're on their way. People right around the barn, people walk the fields, and we have insurance, just like most agribusinesses do, that protects you we have rattlesnakes and we have fire ants. And when people ask about U-pick, I'm able to say, no, we don't do U-pick because you really don't like fire ants and you really don't like rattlesnakes. And that works pretty well because they don't. However, we have picnic tables set up on their porch and people come out and they hang out at the farm and they then do the marketing for us to get more people to come to the farm. Somebody asked about our zinnia post handling process. We pick zinnias directly into water in the field. When we bring them into the farm stand, we have to process them. So we change the water and they go into plain water with 2 of those Gerber tablets because Chrysol's holding solution 2 that we now have obviously has some kind of a hydrator in it that makes the zinnias not do very well. So what's else? Let's see.
They want to know, is our farm stand still self-serve?
Yeah, I already answered that.
Oh, okay.
So question about irrigation.
Yes. Yes, do we use well water from a pond, truck or water in, bring the water in? No, we use well water. Minimum sodium level, I've never really had to deal with that. We have almost no sodium in our water, so I haven't really worried about sodium.
So we don't have an answer for what the minimum sodium level is allowed for flower production.
We have a lot of calcium, and that causes a lot of problems because it's high pH water. So we bring the water pH down by using our preservatives or flower food.
The variety of the sunflower.
Okay, the variety of sunflower, there's so many kinds of sunflowers these days that you can get lost in it. We've grown the same sunflower for the last 30 years, and it's called Superior Sunset. It's also known as Dorit, D-O-R-I-T. It comes from Israel, and it's for hot season summer production. It's day length neutral. For us, you can see it gets about 6 or 7 feet tall, but people up north who have grown it tell me it gets 12 or 14 feet tall. So it's not really very manageable in the north. But for us, we can grow it from March until November and have it remain the same size, the same flower size, the same height. It doesn't go up and down. We have a lot of trouble with varieties such as Pro-Cut because early 8 inches high, and in the middle of the summer they bloom at 6 feet high, and then by the fall we're back down to 18 inches. So it doesn't work for us. So we found that this Superior Sunset, or Dorit, same thing, is the only one we go with. And right now, as far as I know, the only place to get that is from Ball Seed or Color Link. I think that's what they call it.
We used to get it from Gleckner.
From Gleckner, yeah.
And we woke up in shock the morning that Gleckner was no longer in business. There's a question about how long when we soak anemones and ranunculus, they just start to sprout roots when we plant them.
We bring them out just as they're sprouting. That's usually about 10 days for ranunculus, about 3 weeks to 4 weeks for anemones.
And how long do you soak the ranunculus for?
We soak the ranunculus for 4 hours. We soak the anemones for 24 hours.
Right.
If you soak ranunculus too much, it will rot. So you want to get it out of the water. As soon as it's plump, get it out of the water, put it in leave it in the mesh bag. We put it into a bulb crate, and then we shove the whole bulb crate into an old soil bag that has some holes in it.
There's a question from Janice Harris. Do we take our helpers up to Minnesota to harvest peonies? No, that's not, unfortunately, part of what we apply for. And there's more than enough for them to do here to keep the bouquet training and the sunflower train going when we go up to harvest peonies. The peonies is, what do you call that? It's just really hard. We don't have that all figured out, Janice.
What happens, the H2A program is very specific as to the location where the workers can be. They can only work for one company, and they can only work for one company's one location in that company, unless you get all your locations certified. And then you got to go through the whole process all over again. So that's just not, it's not feasible to have them working in 2 different places.
we certainly have housing up there. And what we're thinking about doing is maybe contacting something like the University of Minnesota and seeing if they have horticulture students who want to come out, work 3 weeks in the peonies. And then we'd say they could stay another couple of weeks and go up to the Boundary Waters, take advantage of our space. One of the other questions was, how do we keep the farm stand cash box from being stolen? We have lost it in the past. Right now we're having no problems, even though hundreds and hundreds of people are coming, because enough people that are there explain to others who come in how it works. And I have to say this honestly, our local meth heads are currently in the federal penitentiary. And so they all got busted. And so we're not having any problems whatsoever.
It's cut down a lot.
It is screwed to the wall, and it's a heavy box.
It's steel. Plate steel.
The marketing that we did for direct from the farm really started because we have these sleeves at the grocery store, and also we have a really good relationship with the ladies, with the women, mostly women, it's men too, that sell our flowers at the store. And we used to do a farm tour connected to the grocery store where people would come out. And so little by little, it was this guerrilla marketing thing. We were the face on the farm. This is the face on the farm. But COVID really launched it into the stratosphere 2 years ago, because all the grocery stores had to stop buying flowers. And overnight, even though our grocery store said they would make sure we didn't go out of business, overnight, we all of a sudden had thousands and thousands of bunches of iris that we had to get rid of, had to sell in order to not go out of business. And so what we started that first week of COVID, when it clamped down in Austin, Texas, was we started what we called the Iris share. You bought one bunch for $5, you got the second bunch free, but you had to share it with somebody. That thing went viral because people, and we also became, because we're self-serve during COVID, we became the place that mothers and their children and other people too came to walk around and be alone during COVID. It was a safe place to get out and interact with nature. We have a farm stand newsletter. It only goes out to about 3,500 people. And we have Instagram. And those things are how we market. When you bring it around to Day of the Dead, and we don't get to show you any of those pictures and stuff because our crazy computer's frozen up, but Day of the Dead has become, it's bigger for us than Mother's Day. And we have been able to be part of a community that is several hundred miles wide with millions of people because of, for the last 20 years, Day of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
For those of you who don't understand what Day of the Dead is, if you're not in the southern or western, Dia de los Muertos is the Day of the Dead. It's a Hispanic holiday out of Mexico.
It celebrates Day of
All Souls Day, All
Saints
Day.
And All Souls Day. Like
But
if you were an Episcopal or Catholic, then you would also have that tradition.
But it takes on a Mexican Native American flavor through the marigolds, because the Aztecs used the marigolds as a symbolic flower to show their deceased relatives their way back to the house on the night of the Day of the Dead.
And so if you want to know what Dia de los Muertos is and you don't know, go and rent the movie Coco.
Go watch Coco.
The Disney movie Coco, and that'll explain it. And when you look at Coco, look behind it and you see, what does it talk about? It talks about connection, it talks about family, and it talks about community. And so for the last 20 years, for actually 2 weeks running up to Dia de los Muertos, we put up an ofrenda, which is a big commemorative thing that people from our community bring their pictures of their deceased ones, and they put it on there. And there is a feeling, it's an otherworldly thing that it doesn't have words, but for 2 or 3 weeks, we feel like we are walking in a magical space. In addition, we would like to say that you can, in your community, say, what can I do for the greater good? And so what we do with the marigolds is, our whole town last year started the first Texas Marigold Festival. And I went out and grabbed it 2 years ago. We're the marigold capital of Texas. And you think, well, that's kind of ostentatious, but it is. And we grow, I don't know, 7 or 8 acres of marigolds at that time. And so we have a wholesale arm that's processing and sending these things in water, in buckets, in boxes through the HEB grocery store distribution system, and hundreds of people are coming to the farm to buy buckets that they're going to take home to their to do their own ofrendas. And ever since cocoa came out, there's just a groundswell of people who are doing this thing because people want a connection, and that's part of what COVID gave everybody. And I don't want to beat it to death, but it's just magical. And also, monarch butterflies use our farm. They come through, and we're on the flyway, and so hundreds of monarchs are out there, plus other kinds of marigolds, other kind of butterflies. And another thing Frank does is he plants mixed zinnias, so all those other colors are out there, and cosmos, and they attract other butterflies, and it becomes this magical back to nature thing. And believe it or not, we don't charge you to come onto our farm, but we do expect you to buy something.
So there's a question, what is our favorite marigold varieties? Our marigold varieties. The main marigold variety we grow is called Jedi Orange. And Jedi, I guess, used to be called Jedi with a J, but I imagine that the George Lucas Studios went after him. So they changed it to Chedi, Chedi. Jedi Orange. There's also a golden yellow, but we use other golds and yellows. For the gold and for the yellow, we use Garuda deep gold and Garuda yellow. Huge flowers. They're very tall. And then there's another one that's out called Xochi, which it comes from fall seed.
Xochi.
Which is a kind of a shortened phrase.
It works really well in a bouquet if you're going to do a marigold type bouquet, doesn't it?
Not Xochi.
No.
Xochi's great. It's a great
There you
big
go.
flower, but it's not the one she's talking about. Our weapon that we were telling people about last fall at our meeting when ASCFG came out to our farm. The one that nobody seems to be talking about, but I think is the most amazing, is called Mayan. And it's another one that comes from the Ameriseed company, but you can get it from Geoseed, and it's Mayan. But it is the first time I've ever seen a spray type marigold. It has a smaller flower, maybe about 1.5 inches across, ball shaped, bright orange, and lots of them, millions of flowers. So it grows tall. It grows about 3 feet tall, and you can just cut the whole plant, and you've just got a bouquet filler. It's incredible. Instead of being the focal flower in your bouquet, it's a marigold filler. It's really incredible. Mayan. So that's, if you take one thing away from this Zoom meeting today that kind of pay you back for having to limp our way through here, is try some of that Mayan marigold. And I want you to try it because I want them to keep producing the seed.
Month, people are coming to the barn, and during COVID, we were able to separate them. They're more than far away from us, and we have an open air packing shed situation going, and it is like performance art. And so it involved people in what we're doing. And we also sold marigolds in pots. Somebody asked.
Someone asked quickly. Someone just asked, how do you spell Mayan? Just like the Mayan Indian.
Mayan.
Mayan. Mayan.
And down here, go
Okay.
back up. There's
I'm trying.
how many bouquets do we make? The farm stand may go through 150 a day in the summertime, depending. But I and my team of 2, plus those 4 pickers in the field, it's excruciating to say, but we can do 3,000 and to send out to the grocery stores. But it's not so much fun anymore.
Pamela and one person can make 60 bouquets in an hour. So 1 bouquet a minute.
Right. But everything has to be picked right, stripped correctly, et cetera, et cetera. There are lots of caveats for that.
Okay.
Let's see.
All right. The question is, what size of our greenhouse? What is the size of our greenhouse for starting plugs? We have 30 greenhouses now, and most of them
Are not heated.
The heated greenhouses we have, our main greenhouse is 30 feet wide, 96 feet long. It doesn't have to be that big. It's awfully tall, takes a lot to heat it. We generally use a 20-foot wide by 96-foot greenhouse with double poly for insulation. That are the trays on tables. We build a sort of a pallet-like bench using 6-inch wide fence staves, cedar fence pickets, and the benches are 6 feet across. We can fit 7 trays across on a bench, and we make them 12 feet long. We build them like a pallet so they actually can be lifted right up out of the greenhouse and taken out
And-
to clean the greenhouse.
Frank uses cinder blocks, one on its side and one's upright to hold them, to hold them at
Cinder block,
yeah.
to bring it up to counter height, you put one cinder block flat and put one cinder block standing up, and it brings it right up to the same height that you can work on.
It's not
So-
sophisticated. And there are things that if you visit the farm, you're like, well, gosh, that's not any fancier. And there are some things that we sacrifice simply because we've always been limited with the amount of capital we have.
We're always chasing cash. Anybody who starts this business up from the ground like we did, you're always, the cash flow is a hard part. You're just always running. It's like you're laying track in a moving locomotive.
And I will say that two things that really jumpstart us is, one, in the spring, we have a bedding plant sideline that of vegetable transplants that we sold to the grocery stores and also sell at the farm stand. And that jumpstarts getting the money in the spring before you really have much growing in the fields to pay our workers. And then in the winter, just before the guys go home for the winter, because H2A is at a maximum 10 months, is doing the marigold celebrations. Where we're selling all those tens of thousands of bunches to our HEB grocery store, and we're selling that people are picking them up at the barn. And that bump of cash at the end is amazing. There are lots of other events that we, consider as we go along, like a sunflower blowout or a pick your own zinnia event. It is the fire ants and the rattlesnakes that stop us from that.
What stops me is I don't want to give those customers sharp objects and put them out in the field. You just never know what's going to happen.
Well, we've had lots of different things over the years. And what we have found is that if you can give people a consistent, regular experience every single time they come, you don't have to like an, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, this is over the top experience for them all the time. So I'm going to ask, are we close to a main road? We are an hour from Austin. We are an hour from San Antonio. We are 8 miles from our small town of Blanco. We are 16 miles from our small town of Wimberley.
We're on a highway intersection, but it's a back road highway.
Right. And it's beautiful out here. And it's not, you come over a big hill and you see this big valley, and it's absolutely beautiful. And little by little, the people it has grown. And we built the barn in 2006 with an old-fashioned Amish style barn raising, and it's a piece of art. And so with 200 people that built it originally, and then we do community potlucks periodically and dances. Once we get past COVID, we'll be doing all that again. And people buy in because of the sense of community, and also the fact that everybody needs flowers in their lives.
All right, we're going to wrap it up. We got one quick question that just came in about celosia seed. There was some celosia seed that we auctioned off for the research fund many years ago, and it was separated by color. It said, do we harvest them separately and plant a mix? Our celosia breeding program, we've been working on our own celosias. That is kind of like, we could do a whole Zoom meeting on that, but we generally plant a mix. We separate out colors. We're not breeding specifically for color. We do selections. The best way to call it is recurrent mass selection. We pick our best flowers out of the group, mix the seed back together all in one group, and plant it out the next year. When we do get a color, if one just comes up and you go, oh my gosh, that one's amazing, we do save that seed. We isolate it. I separate that seed out at planting the next time, put it in a different part of the field. Chances are it's not going to be pure. It's still going to have other things coming in because the bees are out there, but we will separate it and separate it and separate it. And after 3 or 4 years, you can get it pretty pure.
What Frank does is before we start picking a new bed that's ready to pick, he does a walkthrough, and if there are heads or pompous plume shapes that he likes, he puts a flagging tape around it, and the guys simply don't pick that one. And so then later, that bed, before that bed is, done in for the winter, then Frank goes through and he collects the seed, and then he lets it dry, and he then he knocks it out.
Maybe we can do a whole program here sometime later with a better connection. One last question. We'll throw everybody a bone about dahlias. We didn't talk about dahlias. I love dahlias. My grandmother used to grow dahlias in Detroit, and she'd get in the newspaper every year for her
Well,
dahlias.
I think we're really limited by the dahlias that are actually going to grow really well here because it's so blasted hot. And so if we do 3 or 4 varieties that do really well, what we've done this year is we've planted a 1/4 acre or so right beside the barn. So in June, when they start blooming, people can come out and ooh and ah, and we will pick them and put them in the cooler. And we will every day, a new set of dahlias are going out into the farm stand. Somebody asked, how do we deal with the heat? Because it's hot, is I put new dahlias out daily. We also have a thing where there's something called random acts of kindness. We call up a random acts of kindness person when we have an overabundance of anything that can be used and distributed locally. They come and pick them up and take them and share them.
All right. And real quick about what varieties, we tend to grow smaller flowered varieties because you get so many more flowers. The big ones are beautiful, but we just don't know how to cut them, handle them, and sell them. But our favorite variety is a variety called Salmon Runner. It's about a 4 or 5 inch beautiful salmon flower. There's a red runner and a pink runner that's exactly the same, just a mutation. So salmon runner, red runner, pink runner. Excellent tall stems, huge production. You cut them and they just grow 2 more back every time you make a cut.
The other thing I do is I tell everybody straight up how long certain flowers are going to last. And that has made an enormous difference so that people, they don't take a dahlia home and go get mad at you because it just lasted a little bit of a time.
We give them warning. It's not gonna be the longest lasting.
Right.
All
And
right.
the same with zinnias.
We're gonna wrap it up, and we apologize for whatever technical glitches are going on over here, our backwoods internet. But thank you so much for your patience.
And we invite you to come down and visit, particularly if your season finishes and you can get here by Day of the Dead. It's going to be amazing at the end of the season.
People come see our farm all the time. It's always open to people to come and look around. We may tell you go take the self-guided tour, but it's there.
Right.
Thank you again. Sure appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
We still have the spinning ball of death.